My name is AJ and I'm an alcoholic. I have experience with our steps as they're laid out in our book with the help of a sponsor who's done the same. I have completed my direct amends and I live all of my amends and all of our steps every day. And recently I found that on a really tough day, it's the best day to very deliberately look at step one and work all the way through all 12 of our steps. Because it's nice to get back to the basics when the shit's on the fan, frankly. So I did not prepare a fancy printed presentation for you. I actually am here to report that in the last 30 days, I've done a complete review of my sex inventory because the fan wasn't clean. And my friend, sent by God, allows me the opportunity to share with you. So, I guess just, as a level set for myself, I think it's important that as I continue my recovery and I work with others, that I remind myself that we are equal. There's, in my experience, very, very little emotionally, developmentally, and spiritually different with respect to those of us that come into Alcoholics Anonymous and those of us who do the steps this way. It seems that the epiphanies tend to mirror in my experience. And maybe that God just has a filter on my ears and in my heart, and that's all that I can do. So that said, I drank. Actually, I'm a third generation attendee of the school here at this church. My upbringing had absolutely nothing to do with my alcoholism, and my use and abuse of alcohol and some other things had everything to do with the ideas that existed in my head and the way in which my brain, when on self-will, processed reality. And I found myself at 34 years old in complete flight from reality. So I came here. My first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, for those of you who haven't heard this story, I think it's really important. My very first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting was a discussion from Advil Cizek on insanity. And at that time, I had based an extremely successful professional career, developing other professionals into millionaires, explaining to them that if they continued to say the same things to the same people, they would get the same results. Alcoholics Anonymous started for me as I think it feels to be kicked in the face by a very angry donkey. That's how my recovery started. So, from there, a few months forward, I came to my first big book step study meeting at the suggestion of a friend who worked at that company, who had become successful at my suggestion. She was 3 years sober at the time. So, at 3 months sober, she brought me to my first big book step study meeting, and my dear and trusted friend said, we find that when we're talking about the problem, we can't be talking about the solution. And it doesn't matter who says that. I even heard, as Kathy read it this morning, I heard it in my friend's voice. It's never going to change, I know that. Because that's the truth. So I'm finished talking about the problem. Now I'm going to talk to you about the solution. Because the thing is, I have to focus on the solution, because if I don't, what happens? I'm upstairs having a conversation with my nana who's been dead for 9 years, telling her about what's wrong with all of you. Because that's my default setting. You're not doing what I need you to do. And for many of you, it may be difficult to relate, but there's a gay man standing in front of you who's going to talk to you about the benefits of the sex inventory, and he's going to explain to you about the ladies that he worked with and his mother. God works in miraculous ways. There's no question about it. Before I get to this part of our book, though, I I learned really important facts. Facts. This is a textbook, in my opinion. First, fear is a corrosive thread that runs throughout my life. Second, there is a promise that tells me that I will become more interested in contributing to life. I learned in this part of the step that I had no contribution to life in this area. None. None. So, in the second paragraph of our reading, there are 9.5 questions, and in the next paragraph, there's 1.5 more questions. But the step is, make a searching and fearless moral inventory of our responses. It does not say difficult inventory, which was a huge and repeated reminder that my sponsor made over and over and over again. So if those of you who are here and ready to vomit, thinking that this crazy man is going to talk to you about what he has done, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we learn in our book that sex is a power that is God-given. And what I look at in my inventory is how I used it, like I used alcohol, food, ego, money, you name it. Insert whatever. You know, there's a 12-step program for it somewhere in the United States, I promise. So, about a month ago, I got a text message, because that's how people communicate these days, that told me that I might be in severe danger. Text message. And I was immediately filled with an overpowering sense of joy. Like, I'm not the guy that would like pull over and think about what I just saw. I'm the guy who, on the rack on my dashboard, like responds to the text with words. It's all the words are right there, because I learned how to tell the phone what to do. Because I'm an alcoholic, I practice. And I sent a reply right back, and I was like, whoa. So I pulled over, I did a little Googling, then I did a little more Googling, and I attended to the situation immediately. And I spent the next 4 days in really, really excruciating physical, mental, and spiritual pain. On the 4th day, God delivered news that was awesome. I was not in danger. And I returned to the gratitude that I felt at the very, very beginning. Because there are very nice humans out there that are not part of this program. And that very nice human needed to know that I was grateful that he shared his truth with me. The next few days required some additional work on this step. Because what happens when this alcoholic gets bad news, the first thing he does is he prays. And the first thing that the prayers respond with, my higher power, call that sponsor. So I did, and she said, oh, let me know how it goes. Because she's a great sponsor, a great sponsor. So after the news came in, I let her know. We talked on the phone for 2 hours about how wonderful it was that I wasn't in that danger. But then, at the close of the call, we got real serious, and she said, I think it's time for you to relook at step 4. And I said, all right, sounds good. And she said, I have some instructions that I'm going to send you. When you're done, send it back. So this is how marvelous my higher power is. I had a free hour. Blocked out my calendar, shut up my phone, grabbed my notebook, because there's a coffee table book in my house. Any of you come to my house, the black notebook, on my coffee table is my 4th step. If I go to the bathroom and you don't want to look at it while I'm sitting there, dig in. Because I own that information today. It no longer owns me. If you need to know something about my experience, I'll show you the book if you're at my house. It's so much easier to read the words. Because I don't tell as long a story in the book, thank God. So I did a consolidation of my sex inventory. You ready? Where was I selfish? Used them, wanted attention, status, power, them to be different. Always one way. Dishonest, persuaded, misleaded. They were married. I was dreaming. Projected, always wanted more. Never asked questions for clarification. Inconsiderate. Never had time. Also didn't ask questions. Always settled for less. Not good at keeping in contact. Didn't ask questions. Lied. Inconsiderate. Refer to the previous list. Risks. Losses. Jealousy. Lied. Played with humans. Never available. Suspicion. Doubt. Contempt. Lies. Availability. Bitterness. Pushy. Needy. Lies. Silence. Censorship. Negative self-talk. False. See examples of them. Done instead. Left alone. Recently, in preparing this, because I had to email a church who was in Boston, so, and within an hour I had to type this. I type a whole page before, quicker than I write a single word. I had to add to the list, because I saw when I looked at this in this little, as I put the puzzle pieces together, I said, wow, you lie a lot. So what should I have done instead? Be honest, act honestly. And then the ideal, which was different, because when I wrote my ideal, I was in a monogamous relationship. Which ended because I was forcing myself to be different. I was suppressing my relationship with my higher power. That still hurts today. That is a permanent harm that I've done to myself. I spent 2.5 years covering my relationship with my higher power so that I could have someone harm me. And he was handsome, no question about it. But I was reminded the first weekend of the week that we separated, that I have a set of priorities. And something I heard before, that I wasn't keeping it present in my life outside of recovery, which is a new way of living. I corrected that. That's one of the amends that I have in my relationship. So, when I would talk to him, I would talk about the universe, all those other weird creative, like, if you can't say one syllable, you can say the 8 other ones that are printed in our book. They're creative intelligence. Because if I ever said, God, you argue with me, 2.5 years being in a relationship with someone who would argue with me about the word of God. Insanity. Crazy. Because subconsciously I thought I was cheating. Right? So today my ideal is honest, timely, truth-telling, without resentment, not harmful. Why do I say not harmful in my ideal? Why? Because my sponsor then, after I presented this list to her, she said, my sponsor added on a non-negotiables list. So, presently, I truthfully don't have time. So, part of being honest about relationships in general is you have to have time. We always hear people talk about step 1, step 2, step 3. We have to cultivate this relationship with a higher power. We have to spend some time with him, her, it, whatever, HP. And step 11, we allocate some time for our higher power regularly. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a day, maybe it's once an hour. But we have to dedicate some time. I don't always have time for my higher power regularly. sometimes I just drive my higher power throughout my entire day so that when I'm finished talking to you and I'm on my way across the room to talk to you, I can have a quick convo with my higher power. Because I'm not a sit lotus, like my body doesn't even sit lotus. Yoga teacher laughed when I tried it. But like I can't physically get to that time. You know, like people talk about all the time, and I envy you because I want to grow up and be like you. You know, I spend my time with God in the morning, and there's a prayer note somewhere in your house. That's not in my life. So I have to have time. I have to have time in order to cultivate this relationship with my higher power before I'll ever be able to be present in a relationship. So during this period of not in a relationship, she asked me to put together 2 lists of non-negotiables. So there's casual scenarios, maybe where in family thinking we have time and we can go on a few dates. You know, what's the framework of those conversations? And then, you know, at the time we meet the real deal, you know, what's the framework of, you know, that situation, you know, how's it gonna go? So, I'm not gonna read you the whole list, but I'm gonna give you a couple of things because they're unbelievable to me. It's my list. No. So there's like 5 things on the casual, and they're all open to full levels of interpretation. And I use single words, for example, because I want all parts of honesty in a relationship. And I want to, you know, even if it's an acquaintance, you know, I prefer someone who's clean in all ways. You know, not just like, you know, as a detail. You know, like, showers regularly and, you know, thinks cleanly, you know, not just, you know, like one, whoa, you know, I haven't done that one in 90 days, you know, whatever it is. So the other list is, so there's 26 items on the list. Before I wrote this list, I was absolutely sure that I would never, ever, it was not happening, ever date someone in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I had myself convinced, self-will alone, I had myself convinced that I was enough crazy for a relationship. Then I wrote this list. So it begins with practicing Roman Catholic. The second item is must like the church ladies. Because I'm part of a social group of 8 people. 4 men and 4 women. We sing in the church choir, and we go out for dinner after church choir rehearsal on Thursday night. So if I'm dating you and you don't like them, when they come over to the house, you're going to have a terrible life. Because I've known some of them for 30 years. My last one didn't like the fact that I sang Christian songs. Never mind that I went to a church and I didn't know the rest of the deal, right? So then the end of the list, and I didn't see this until my sponsor called me and asked me about it because she needed to understand what the words meant. I put on my non-negotiable list that a future partner in a long-term relationship must enjoy my mother and my sister. So she called me and she's like, what does that mean? And I was like, well, you know about my mom and you know about my sister. You know, a human being who enjoys them must have the utmost of patience. My sister is mentally handicapped. My mother is beginning a mental disease. And I'm dedicated to both of them. So where in the mall, or you know, where in the shop house, and my mother calls in an emergency, I'm going to throw my credit card down on the table and we're walking out of the restaurant. You know, especially if she calls me from her cell phone on a Saturday night when she's out driving and she's not supposed to because she forgot that she can't see in the dark. And I have to go get her. But I don't care to hear whatever she got delivered. My mother's on the side of the road. Bye. Oh, you're not going to come with me? Good. Okay. Mail me my credit card. You know, like, those types of boundaries didn't exist before. I'd like wait and rock and throw up in my mouth and swallow it until it was finished with dinner. and then listen to him complain about the fact that my mother was so needy on the way to help her. Like, really? These are the things that I settled for. Because I was really sober, and I didn't think I could do better. I didn't think I could do better. So I had that conversation with my sponsor who producing this list, and really I was like, God, what do I want? And it was like, I don't know. No, God, I'm really particular. And he said, yeah, you are. Yeah, stick to it. I was like, okay. So then I go to see my therapist, and the same thing. This is how these spiritual awakenings happen. Some ridiculously difficult thing happens in my life. I immediately call my sponsor, and this has been true for, I'm actually meeting with my fourth sponsor in recovery this week to get started, see what it kind of, hosting, type of, information gathering that he needs me to do in order to move on in my recovery. Whatever he asks me, I'll do. This one was like this pretty big assignment, and she's still talking about how quickly I did it. I said, yeah, I don't do pain, and I knew I was going to be out of pain when I made that list. So it's, basically, let's use a single word. So, catastrophe, prayer, sponsorship, work, therapy. The therapist's appointment is always on the day that I finish the work the sponsor assigns. So I'm usually, finish reading it or finish discussing it with my sponsor, and I'm sitting in my therapist's office. She's like, so what's been going on? She's looking at me. I don't even think she wants you to come to see her anymore. But over the last 9 years, she's become a really good accountability partner, and I told her I was going to be coming back. She's like, okay. And this particular appointment was a great opportunity for her to continue to remind me that this program works. So I sit there for an hour, and she says, how's it going? I'm like, well, I got this test, and then I'm a sponsor, and she told me to do this, and then I did this, and then I pulled this out, and I handed it to her, and she's looking at it, and I let it spin, and blah, 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 and I tell her the whole story, and I'm like, yeah, so if he's not Catholic, he doesn't enjoy my mother. She was like, wait! I would lean back into her couch. This woman's never spoken like that at all to me. She's just like, well, did you get somewhere? Well, she's like, your partner, in a non-negotiable fashion, needs to enjoy your mother. She wiggles forward on her chin, hand on her head, and she goes, you hate her and wish her dead when I met you. And I was like, yeah, it works. I don't even know where that came from. And she says, you really don't need to be coming to that. And I said, oh, I do, because nobody else noticed that. She was like, all right, I'll see you in a month. And I laughed. For real. For real, this is my life. Okay? So, I'm sure I'm way over time, but I just want to tell you one more thing. So those 9 questions yielded to me an excessively long list. Actually, the same number. It's so really funny. And this is why I say this. No, because I want you to think that I'm a whore. We began reading on a page. It's the same number of people in my inventory. So if you figure it out, you're mine. All the pages. So like I just told you, there's 3 or 4 answers to each one of those questions. Almost every single one of those answers is written on every single page. The only thing that's different is, first it was you. You didn't do what I wanted. Then it was you. You didn't do what I wanted. Then it was you. You didn't do what I wanted. And then when I got to the end of that bar, I left and went to the next bar. You sometimes would go in the front door and zip around the way down through that crowd. It never worked. It never worked. But now that I know about these questions, and now that I know that fear is that frozen thread, And now that I know that I have an ability to contribute to life, I'm now focused on contributing to life. So, how does this help me in my relationships? Well, when I see this beautiful lady here in the grocery store, I don't discuss with her items that might arouse bitterness, jealousy, or suspicion. I don't cause harm. When I engage with my mother to make amends, because there were no direct amends, it wouldn't have been fruitful. When I engaged with my amends with her, I began participating with behaviors that clearly demonstrate my sex ideal. Because I used my mother. It was the adorable little boy that I flaunted around the barroom for physical gratification. That same attitude, the same perspective on life that I used for money and permission and all of that other stuff. And the suspicion and the bitterness and the harm that I caused in that relationship, which ultimately gave me no relationship with her, was self-doubt. I would, like an evil magician, conjure really violent levels of self-doubt in her. And I would get her so confused that she would do what I wanted. Now we have conversations like this. I don't want to talk about that. No, Mom, I'm never going to learn how to drink. And she says, okay. And then after 45 minutes or so in the car, where we're driving in silence, I'll say things like, what's good in your life? And not only do I want to know, I listen and remember the answers, so that the next time we're in the car, we don't go near her taking my inventory. I say, Mom, have you talked to so-and-so? How's things going? I remember last time we were together, you told me about blah, 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 blah. And she always begins the conversation with, I can't believe you remember. And quietly inside myself, I say, that's because I learned how to care, Mom. I don't say that to her. Because I was torturing her previously under the guise of, I care about you. Right? So she's always thought I did. And then I use these things in work relationships, and all that stuff. I can't send an email to my colleagues in New Jersey that's going to arouse bitterness, jealousy, or suspicion. I have to be honest. I have to dial into conference calls with 45 people present and say, ladies and gentlemen, I've made a mistake. These are the things that I'm going to do to fix it. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone here that would like to change my approach? And then 40 people giving me suggestions. I do them all. And we're all back to reality. And we're back to being happy. My course have taught me how make-believe living becomes the false reality that I live under. Yeah, I make up enough stories, the lies, that I begin to believe it's the only way of living, and that I live in that fantasy world. I fortunately had enough realistic, they weren't realistic experiences that I didn't have to make a list of fancy or imagined. And the truth is, I was snoring about life. I have enough of those. But the bottom line is, I don't live in the fantasy and the imagined today. I ask questions, and I trust the answers as truth. When I get the answers, I either move forward or I move on. It's amazing to think that I ask questions about God in first encounters with other men. Many of them are scared. But that's my higher power doing for me what I can't do for myself, and that's what this program does for me every day. What I can't do for myself. Thanks for listening.